Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Ransomware is an easy way to get one's hands on some money.
Customer concern and confusion after the ransomware attack on TransLink. Also,
it kind of felt like chaos all of a sudden, that it was real and it's in our town.
Small communities in BC now struggling to stop the spread of COVID-19. And
off the charts cuckoo, so thank you.
CBC listeners and viewers raise a record amount of money for local food banks.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Customer concern and confusion tonight for bus and SkyTrain riders after TransLink confirmed it is the victim of a ransomware attack. The Transit Authority still isn't revealing the full extent of the system hack and data breach. And as John Hernandez reports, cybersecurity experts say there needs to be greater transparency.
The payment systems are back up. For days, customers couldn't use debit or credit cards at these gates, a security measure after hackers broke into TransLink's IT. Riders now catching wind of the attack.
I think that we should keep a tighter lock on security.
The world's a big place. A lot of people are really good with computers, and ransomware is an easy way to get one's hands on some money.
Some still wary over their payment information.
They've said that isn't at a risk, but how am I to know, right?
TransLink says it doesn't store customer financial data, which is instead processed by a secure third party. But today, government officials weren't ready to say there's zero risk.
The investigation is ongoing. I'm not going to offer anyone any absolute ironclad guarantee until the investigation is completed.
Meanwhile, disruptions internally after TransLink shut down its payment system for workers, a cautionary move forcing the employer to come up with workarounds to pay staff. Overtime won't be included for now.
Today was our payday. We made sure with the employer, we are in constant talks with the employer, so they made sure everybody will get paid. It's not going to be 100% accurate.
Cybercrime has surpassed the drug trade as being the crime of choice for criminal syndicates across the world.
This cybersecurity expert says the attack didn't come as a surprise.
Transit authorities, especially North America, that are getting hit by this. TransLink just happened to be the first one in Canada to get hit by it.
Ransomware hacks in Texas, Colorado, and California have cost transit agencies millions of dollars. With much still unknown here, Vogel says TransLink should be more transparent with riders.
If they don't know what's going on, that's okay, but be upfront and say, this is what we know, this is what we don't know. I think TransLink is missing the mark.
This attack, a cybersecurity wake-up call, one that experts say should be taken seriously by organizations across the board. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Sadly, there are another 11 deaths to report tonight as BC deals with the COVID-19 pandemic. 492 people have now died because of the virus. 711 more people tested positive since yesterday's update. The province's total case count now sits at more than 36,000. And there are over 9,000 active cases in our province, 338 people in hospital, 76 of whom are in intensive care. Nearly 11,000 people are under active public health monitoring. Of today's new cases, nearly 20% are outside of the Lower Mainland. And that is raising concern in smaller communities where resources to fight the pandemic might not be enough. Greg Rasmussen has more from Revelstoke, a BC ski town, facing a flood of new cases and concerns about outsiders.
Usually it's a busy winter playground, but now a COVID surge has the mayor of Revelstoke pleading for people to stay away after 7 cases were traced to recreational travelers.
My blunt message is if it's not essential travel, don't come here. Essential travel doesn't mean that, geez, I've got a ski pass and I've got to use it, or I need to be snowmobiling this weekend.
Despite the request, outside visitors continue to arrive, shown by the out-of-province plates at the local ski hill.
Just having to be secluded by yourself for so long is pretty stressful.
This cafe manager was one of those who caught the virus, along with 2 coworkers.
It kind of felt like chaos all of a sudden, that it was real and it's in our town.
Cases in Revelstoke went from 0 during the summer to 22 in late November, surging to 49 this week. That's 1 in 200 residents infected. People flocked to this testing site, while doctors worried.
For a small 10-bed hospital, we don't have an ICU. There's only 2 respirators in this hospital, and one of them needs to be reserved for emergency surgeries.
Revelstoke wasn't publicly identified as a cluster until 22 people tested positive, because BC health officials don't publish daily caseloads for small communities.
In a small community like ours, it spreads like wildfire.
This city councillor wants more data more quickly.
If we had heard ahead of time that, hey, there was 1, 2, or 3, we could have let the business community know this is what's going on, prep the health sector a little bit better.
On the upside, once those numbers were public, people took action.
What happened last Saturday was everybody got worried. Everybody started wearing masks. Everybody started listening. Everybody started saying, oh man, this is real.
She says it's been a scary lesson for Revelstoke, and other small towns should pay attention. Greg Rasmussen, CBC News, Vancouver.
As we know, the pandemic has had ripple effects far beyond care homes and hospitals. Now we are getting a better idea of who has been hit hardest by the social and economic costs, all part of a sweeping new province-wide survey. Our Dan Burr joins us live with more on that tonight. So Dan, who has been hit the hardest?
Parents with young children, Mike, and young adults. The BC Centre for Disease Control Foundation for Public Health did a massive COVID-19 survey in May. They asked almost 400,000 people, about 1 in 10 British Columbians, the largest ever population health survey in Canada. So what did they find? Let's start with parents with young children. They found they were more likely to report worsening mental health, less sleep, and that their parents are drinking more. In the midst of these challenges, BC's Deputy Public Health Officer says the decisions to keep schools and after-school programs open were influenced by the fact children have not been significant transmitters of COVID-19, but also by survey results suggesting these things were necessary to help families cope. And we've certainly heard from parents who have been monumentally stressed out from having to be, at times, parent as well as teacher. The study also points to the pressure on the children, impaired learning and less social connection.
And Dan, what about young adults? Some very serious but different stresses on them.
Social worries, yes, but also economic ones. Adults aged 18 to 29 were nearly twice as likely to be out of work because of COVID-19. 27% of respondents in that age group, compared with just 16% for the province overall. It found they were also more likely to report increased difficulty meeting their financial needs and obligations, and were more pessimistic about their financial futures than other age groups. We've heard many stories of young people worried if they could pay rent, buy groceries, get around at least.
The fact that the 18 to 30 age group, our 18 to 29 age group, reported a higher rate of declining mental health, difficulty making ends meet, and a declined social connection is really important. This is a critical time in people's lives. And as we think through our response to this pandemic, I think we, throughout the world, we are recognizing the importance of making sure that we look after our young people.
At least one parent CBC News has spoken with young kids wonders why the results from a survey done in the spring are only now being released when things are rather different. Dr. Gustafsson says that was because it was delayed because they had to clean and analyze the data before publishing it. And you can read much more about this survey and the reaction to it on our website, cbc.ca/BC. Mike.
Dan Burrett, thank you tonight. Well, after CBC News learned about alleged misspending at the Provincial Health Services Authority, today the Health Minister, Adrian Dix, directed the Deputy Minister to look into the PHSA's conduct and made some recommendations as the investigation continues. The PHSA is accused of spending $7 million on unusable face masks from China, hundreds of thousands of dollars on renovations to its executive offices, and tens of thousands of dollars on catered meals for executives and staff. Among the recommendations from Minister Dix today, limits on PHSA internal capital spending without approval, limits on senior executive changes, and a review of business meeting expense policy. PHSA says it accepts the recommendations and is supportive of the review. Well, BC churches are finding new ways to stay connected as they head into the holidays. Religious gatherings are, of course, suspended in BC because of COVID-19. As Andrea Ross reports, it's pushing churches to get creative.
These pews have been empty since March, but Minister Monica McKinley is okay with it. She's been doing all her sermons over Zoom.
Surprisingly, it's been pretty amazing.
COVID-19 has certainly posed a challenge, but it's not all bad news for her Vancouver church.
It has made us think of how we live out our faith during the week, and it's not just something we do on Sundays.
BC has suspended in-person religious gatherings to curb COVID-19 transmission, but not everyone has followed the rules. One church in Langley was fined last weekend for holding services in person, but the province says this is uncommon.
Most faith leaders have been so strong in supporting their communities to do the right thing and to carry on their mission despite having these challenges that we're dealing with in a global pandemic.
At North Langley Community Church, services that used to look like this,
if you're interested in receiving prayer,
now look more like this.
Hey NLCC kids, I'm in my home today and you're in your home, and that's because we're doing church at home.
And they're seeing some new faces on Zoom.
It's kind of like throwing out the welcome mat.
Online church can be less intimidating for new members and more convenient for others.
Sunday services for people who are ill or for whatever reasons can't be in a crowd. It's wonderful to be able to have, for them to be able to, enjoy church at home.
As 2020 ends, I believe we need to spend a lot of time with Jesus.
Some churches are trying to show that's still possible.
So practicing faith this way is kind of a new thing.
The Christmas story in the Bible is a story about God choosing to be present with human beings. If that story is true, then God is present with us whether or not we're together in a building.
A year of changes for better or for worse.
We're deeper as a community because of this experience together, and I'm sure that will really enrich us when we do come back.
And making do until then. Andrea Ross, CBC News, Vancouver.
A man who was supposed to be quarantining was caught by police heading to Whistler this weekend, but ended up with a very short and very expensive trip. The driver of an Audi with California plates was stopped heading up the Sea to Sky Highway on Monday. He was pulled over and told police he just returned from the United States about 2 weeks ago. So the officer called border and health officials to check. West Van police say the man was under order not to travel, but they had chosen to go up to Whistler to do some snowboarding. Instead, he was issued a $1,150 fine and was sent to cool his heels and his snowboard boots at home. And police have been busy enforcing COVID-19 restrictions all across the Lower Mainland. Burnaby RCMP releasing their monthly update for November, and here's what they had to deal with. On November 1st, officers had to break up a 40-person rave. On the 15th, a 58-person apartment party was reported. On the 22nd at 2:30 in the morning, a resident was ticketed for hosting a house party. The person was also ticketed back in September for the same offense. Officers responded to a total of 46 complaints and issued 5 tickets in November. That does not include the numerous restaurant, lounge, and business checks that they conducted. Well, some university students will get an extra long holiday this Christmas. UBC, SFU, and Capilano University all extending winter breaks by a week. The schools say the move is so students and staff can better prepare for another term under pandemic restrictions. Students at all 3 schools will now be returning to class January 11th instead of January 4th. The change applies to both of UBC's Vancouver and Okanagan campuses. As for elementary and high schools, the Ministry of Health has not announced any plans to extend the winter break, but that option is not off the table. Two Canadians being held in China under severe conditions could be moving closer to getting their freedom. Fresh hopes were raised last night by reports that talks are underway between the U.S. Department of Justice and Meng Wanzhou. But as David Cochrane reports, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was cautious when addressing those reports.
Canadians know well that our top priority is the safe return of the two Michaels.
Whatever is happening behind the scenes, the public messaging isn't changing.
We've been working extremely hard to bring home these two Michaels. It is an absolute priority for the government. I won't be commenting on any of the recent reports.
Trudeau reluctant to say anything that could endanger Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, or say anything that Meng Wanzhou's legal team could use in the extradition case. China's foreign ministry repeated its call for Meng's release, saying her detention is part of a U.S. attempt to punish Chinese tech companies. But diplomatic experts warn that even if Meng cuts a deal, there's no guarantee the Michaels will be set free.
It's not automatic that they will come back, but I'm pretty sure that there are discussions taking place right now between the Canadian Embassy in Beijing and Chinese authorities to try to come up with an arrangement.
The worst possible outcome for Canada would be for the U.S. to cut a deal that sends Meng back to China without the Michaels coming back to Canada.
Well, then I think the Trudeau government's going to look like chumps. You know, that we've been used by the Americans and consistently abused by the Chinese. So I think Mr. Trudeau's got to put a tremendous amount of pressure on both the Trump administration and the incoming Biden administration to make sure that there is an explicit link.
Meng remains under house arrest in her Vancouver mansion, the two Michaels in a Chinese prison. Next week, a grim anniversary, 2 years since the two Michaels were detained by the Chinese government. David Cochrane, CBC News, Ottawa.
A former social worker from Kelowna who allegedly stole money from dozens of at-risk youth in his care has been arrested and is now facing fraud charges. Robert Riley Saunders has been charged with 10 counts of fraud over $5,000, as well as theft, breach of trust, and uttering a forged document. Saunders worked for the Ministry of Children and Families from 1996 to 2018. He's accused of siphoning money intended to help youth find homes and support. The allegations led to a class action lawsuit. The province is expected to pay about $8 million to youth who were in Saunders' care. He'll appear in a Kelowna court next week. Surrey RCMP are reporting an arrest in a kidnapping case from last year. Mayaz Noor Eldon has been arrested on a Canada-wide warrant for kidnapping, unlawful confinement, aggravated assault, and robbery. With the help of police in Montreal and Ontario, the Surrey RCMP Serious Crimes Unit discovered that Noor Eldon had been hiding out in Montreal. RCMP are trying to have the 22-year-old Somalian man returned to BC to face charges. Police are still looking for an accomplice in the targeted incident. Dylan Petrin is wanted on a Canada-wide warrant in connection to the alleged kidnapping, as well as murder charges out of Winnipeg. Investigators believe he may be in the Calgary area. Well, residents of Strathcona are rallying around a notable local figure. Her name is Annie, and she's been collecting cans in the neighborhood for nearly 2 decades. But as Tina Lovegreen explains tonight, the woman known for her smile has been diagnosed with terminal cancer.
It's a quiet day in the neighborhood. Something is noticeably missing, and it's Annie Tsai.
Her smile. She was always walking around with a smile on her face.
Annie Tsai would collect the cans and bottles in the neighborhood, but it was more about what she gave back.
She usually came in our store. She usually sit down and usually smiles, always kind. She wanna share her food. She usually give to me her food. So she's really kind.
The 82-year-old has terminal cancer and is undergoing radiation. When the community found that out, they began to rally around her.
There's so many people that are, that she touched that I didn't even know.
Andrew Dadson started an online fundraiser, so far raising more than $15,000.
We knew she didn't have a ton of family, so I think like Strathcona became like her family and her social life and everything.
Datsun first met her 18 years ago when he'd come to this park to play soccer.
She didn't speak English super well, but she tries always, and so you kind of had a way to communicate with her, but you know, just really sweet, bringing you candies, and I don't know, she was just like a real sweet lady around the neighborhood.
She would often leave people notes on their front doorsteps, referring to them as handsome boy or beautiful lady.
She came to my studio all the time to get her cart fixed, and because she'd put so many miles on it, I think the wagon would break down.
And in true Annie fashion, she doesn't like all the fuss being made about her.
But everybody wanted to help, and the fundraiser's given a good way for her to, the community, to show their support.
Because it's not the parks or buildings that make a community, it's people. People like Annie. Tina Lovegreen, CBC News, Vancouver.
Johanna Wagstaffe here now with the forecast. Pretty nice day on the South Coast. Are we going to get a rinse and repeat for tomorrow?
We do indeed.
Oh,
yeah,
good.
we get to keep the high pressure for the weekend. Love it when that works out. Not the whole weekend, but I can kickstart it with another day under the ridge. Name of my next album, I think, Under the Ridge. Let me take you through the current temperatures right now. A little chilly out there as we get into the overnights. 4 at YVR right now. It was milder last night because of that cloud cover, but clear skies will allow all of that heat we saw today, getting up to 8s and 9s, to radiate away. There's the high pressure system protecting the south coast, but we are seeing a good stream of moisture continuing to hit central and northern coastal sections, which I'll talk more about later on in the show. We have snow and rainfall warnings in place. It has been a very wet week. But as I take you through our forecast, a dry week continues into the weekend. There's that front, though, that approaches for Sunday. So, Mike, I will have more on that approaching front coming up later on in the show. But today, as we know, was a fantastic day. For more than 3 decades, CBC Vancouver's annual Open House and Food Bank Day has raised money for those in need.
And while we are in the midst of this pandemic, we didn't let that get in the way of tradition. But yes, it was very different for sure.
And as our Zara Premji tells us, today's 34th annual Food Bank Day raised a record-breaking amount of money for local food banks.
This year is different, but it's almost kind of emotional to see everyone's faces.
It's a new twist on an old tradition.
I love that I'm in your kitchens and living rooms.
Creating connection, helping community, and spreading cheer in what was considered quite the unconventional way once, but now not so much. For 34 years, CBC's Open House and Food Bank Day has raised money for those in need at more than 100 food banks across the province.
It's grown from $462 in that first year of donations and to over $10 million in total.
And a pandemic wasn't going to pause the efforts to help those who need it most.
More people who are actually still working or working part-time, trying to make ends meet, but they've just tipped over the edge because of COVID and their work circumstances, so they're having to be temporarily using the services of a food bank.
Adapting the traditional live music and in-person meet and greets to special broadcasts and virtual sit-downs with some of CBC's most notable, coupled with some of their revealing secrets.
I'm a freak about music. I love music. I spend my days searching for music.
An open house in your house.
It's about raising money for the food bank. It's about looking forward to the holidays. It's about getting a chance to see the CBC at work. It's all of those things all combined, and it really has turned into something special.
So this is a picture of what we look like from space right now.
From weather tutorials with our resident meteorologist.
That's it. Oh.
To cooking lessons in Prince George.
Great to be sharing the screen with my colleague Ian Hannamansing.
To sitting down with the familiar faces who bring you the news daily.
This, The Lost Gift, A Christmas Story.
And even a little holiday reading with the favorite voice.
I do get to do a little bit of a demonstration.
Food Bank Day 2020, in true COVID-19 fashion, went with the new normal. But that's not to say we don't miss the old ways.
It is so energizing to have people come in here and ask questions and take the time to come see us. And I really miss it.
But while not in the traditional ways, connection was made, dollars raised, and a message of kindness and 'tis the season of giving conveyed.
Most interaction I've had in a long time.
Zara Premji, CBC News, Vancouver.
Yeah, it's been quite a day. And, you know, Joe, I think we really look forward to next year when our house will be open. We'll get to see everybody in something other than a
Couldn't agree
Zoom
more.
room. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was surprisingly intimate today, so it was a good one.
It was nice. It was nice. And boy, you mentioned record-breaking. The donations are still coming in tonight. We're going to take a look at where we're at right now, and look at that.
Wow.
$1.756 million.
Okay, that's incredible.
It is incredible. Thanks so much to all the viewers and listeners who've donated today.
Yeah, seriously, wow. A reminder, you can continue to watch this newscast live on CBC Gem, and we'll keep you posted.
Yep, CBC Vancouver, also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Well, Canada's top doctor has released new details about who will be eligible to receive the first doses of the COVID-19 vaccine once it begins arriving. Just ahead, the 4 groups of Canadians who will likely get it first. And thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream tonight. Well, we of course can't get together like we normally do this time of year, but people are finding safe ways to take in the spirit of the season. There are dazzling light shows at Halifax City Hall and on the waterfront there. Colleen Jones went to check them out.
Halifax City Hall like you've never seen it before. The gorgeous Christmas tree, usually the showstopper, has been outshone by the City Hall building itself and the extravagant light show. As kids play around the Christmas tree, this has become the selfie spot, although you need to be creative to get that right shot.
Beautiful. Like, I think it's like a very nice thing that we can do like during these tough times, because like especially during the holiday times, everyone is currently like feeling alone. So it's like, it's nice to have something that we can all get together and see.
Mike Gillette works for the city. This has been his project, making something COVID socially distanced friendly.
It's really great, and it's outdoors, as you say, lots of social distancing space. People are respectful of each other. So I've been impressed with that. People are respecting the situation that we're all in.
Mike worked with Nick Iwasko to create this magic. First, Nick had to work out all the architectural angles of the building.
Looking at the windows and the architecture and trying to wrap the projection around that and kind of play with what's here.
The visuals are projected from 2 massive projectors. Now, all of this is magical, but Nick is taking me underground through the moat. Apparently back in the 1800s, this used to be horse stables. Now in 2020, it's the headquarters for the light show.
This is actually all hand-drawn, so I've got a Wacom tablet and sort of a digital pen. I'm drawing little decorations and just a lot of sort of just hand-painting the different scenes that kind of go for that hand-drawn look, which is sort of what we wanted to go for.
Now, Nick just didn't do the light show for City Hall, but also here on the Halifax waterfront, he has some of the displays for the Evergreen Festival. This is the new look for the Acadia. Even the wave has added drama. I'm walking the Tunnel of Hope with Gordon Stevens from Develop Nova Scotia.
Sort of one of the farthest points out on the boardwalk. So at the end of it, you'll have a view out to George's Island and the mouth of the harbor.
While their plans for the festival had to be scaled way back, they thought it was important to bring some light.
You know, it's been a really tough year. It's been a tough year for the world, but it's been a particularly tough year for Nova Scotians. And we wanted to give people a reason to come out, to get some fresh air, to spend some time with their family, to take a moment to not worry, but to have a little hope.
Hope. That's on everyone's Christmas list this year. Colleen Jones, CBC News, Halifax.
Looks great. All right, stay with us. We've got details on the federal government's rollout plan for vaccines in terms of who will be getting it first. That and other COVID-19 news from across the country in just a second. Stay right here. With the very first doses of a COVID-19 vaccine meant to arrive early next month, Dr. Bonnie Henry has hinted at who might get the vaccine first in our province, seniors and caregivers. As Christine Birak reports, now the federal government is hinting at what its priorities are.
Canada is expecting 6 million doses of leading COVID-19 vaccines to arrive between January and March. That's enough to vaccinate 3 million Canadians. As for who should get those doses, experts have been recommending seniors in care homes, followed by adults over 70, healthcare workers, and vulnerable Indigenous communities. Canada's top doctor now says that's well within reach.
As a ballpark, these 4 groups of people, as things are rolled out, should be covered by the initial doses.
Come April, if all goes to plan, officials say millions of additional doses will continue rolling in for other Canadians.
In some ways, it's quite seamless. So we just continue vaccinating all these groups, and so we'll have enough for everyone.
But experts say a lot depends on how many doses each province or territory receives and when. Health Canada hasn't said whether vaccines will be handed out based on population or need. Right now, Manitoba and Alberta have the highest rate of active cases. It's not clear whether those provinces would get priority over larger ones like Ontario and Quebec.
I can tell you those conversations have been extremely collaborative.
Provinces ultimately decide who gets which vaccine and when. After priority groups, experts say essential workers, including grocery store clerks, teachers, and truck drivers, should be next. No doubt, many Canadians are wondering where in line they might be for a shot.
I tend to be somewhat cautiously optimistic that by summer, we could see, regular people in the public being vaccinated widely.
Others are less optimistic.
Honestly, I see those people getting those vaccines next fall. I don't see them getting them this spring. But again, I don't know how much we're getting.
But a clearer picture of who might get those precious vaccines first is starting to come into focus. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
To Manitoba now, where First Nations people there are being disproportionately affected by COVID-19. In the past week, there have been 625 new cases and 11 deaths related to the virus. More than 100 of those cases are linked to a remote fly-in reserve in the northern part of the province. As CBC's Cameron McIntosh tells us, the chief says the community is at the breaking point.
Tucked away in Manitoba's far north, Shamattawa's isolation once protected it. Now it's working against it. Residents literally trying to hide behind closed doors as the COVID test positivity rate approaches 70%.
We're losing people by the hour.
Chief Eric Redhead says 130 people, more than 1 in 10, are sick. With more each day, the community is overwhelmed. He's asking for a military field hospital.
I didn't get a firm answer from the minister. Basically, the minister says, he hopes to know soon.
That's what Mark Miller also told the House of Commons.
We'll remain in active communication with the community and stand ready to provide additional support.
Ottawa has sent a medical tent, but no way to heat it. In December, a small medical response team is on the ground. One of those people may have actually caught COVID. The Red Cross has sent cots. It's sending people next week. This time of year, the community is fly-in only. Complicating and adding to the urgency, Shamattawa was already fighting an epidemic of tuberculosis, making many here more susceptible, say response team doctors.
We're always also dealing with these overlapping historic and current socioeconomic conditions that Indigenous people experience.
One of those is overcrowding.
And the houses, everybody's overcrowded here. And that's why it's spreading so fast.
Sherry Schroeder lives in a house with 11 other people, all trying to stay apart.
When I go home, I go straight to my room. I haven't had any contact with my children.
Redhead says the community is at the breaking point.
I don't know how much more time we have before basically the entire community is infected with this.
As more people get sick, the community is trying to send more people out in a province already struggling with full ICUs and one of the worst infection rates in the country. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
In the effort to protect the elderly from COVID-19, a crisis of loneliness has emerged. How some are trying to connect next.
clear the way. It's 9 a.m. at the Army and Navy. Christmas is just 1 month away. Party time. Kiss the recession goodbye. The herd is headed for ladies' wear. It's super discount day on designer dresses. And these people are super shoppers, the real pros.
These pantyhose are a real deal.
Are they? Sure. Most of them won't talk. They don't want to be seen in action. They just move.
Why pick on me again? Just a few dresses, a sweater if I find any, a blouse.
The concentration is intense. Quick decisions have to be made. No one is going to get in their way.
What's the temperament of a bargain hunter?
A little touchy.
Well, they like a good buy, you know. They grab everything they can see and walk away with it and try bring it back later if it doesn't fit. They get a little rough, eh? Yeah, really rough. They grab and push and shove, you know.
But if shoppers get a little testy and aggressive, that's okay. A glance at the Army and Navy balance sheet says it all.
We've heard a lot this year about people hoarding their money to get through the recession. The merchants have been going crazy trying to get people to part with their dollars. There's only one way to do it. It's that age-old marketing technique called the bargain.
This is the Woodward's warehouse, and it's closing for good next week. And before they put the lock on the door, that magic word bargain will clean the place out.
We took in over $500,000 yesterday.
And today?
Today, hopefully we do the same.
Big ticket items like appliances and furniture have not been selling this year, but they move real fast when there's 50% off. Washing machines, radios, vacuum cleaners, rocking chairs, the works. Incredible.
I've got a stereo cassette recorder over there waiting for me, I hope. How much are you going to spend today, do you think?
Over $200.
Well, I got this radio over here, and this Toastmaster. Well, it certainly is a good buy.
And I got quite a few radios to give away as gifts.
Quite a few?
Well, 3 as a matter of fact.
Really? How much are you going to spend?
Well, I already spent over $300.
So not all stores are crying the blues this Christmas. At least for some, like the Army and Navy and Woodward's, it's going to be ho, ho, ho all the way to the bank. Sue Stern, CBC News, Vancouver.
A look at some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
They've said that isn't at a risk, but how am I to know, right?
Customer concern and confusion tonight for bus and SkyTrain riders after TransLink confirmed it's the victim of a ransomware attack. The Transit Authority still isn't revealing the full extent of the system hack and data breach. TransLink says it doesn't store customer financial data, which is instead processed by a secure third party. But today, government officials weren't ready to say there is zero risk.
And then with the last 2 weeks with the COVID cases really skyrocketing now, we're declared a cluster. It's extremely worrisome that people really aren't hearing the advice and heeding to it from Dr. Bonnie Henry.
That advice is for people not to travel in BC, but some people still are. And there are folks coming here from other provinces. That's the case in Revelstoke, a popular ski area. The mayor is telling people to stay away. And like many smaller communities, the town has seen a surge in cases of COVID-19. And COVID-19 has claimed 11 more lives in BC. And Dr. Bonnie Henry is reporting 711 new cases tonight. 338 people are in hospital, 76 in intensive care. And there are now 56 active outbreaks in long-term care and assisted living facilities and 9 in acute care units of hospitals. The pandemic has meant that seniors living alone are feeling more isolated than ever. In many cases, they can't have visitors and they can't take part in activities they're used to. But as Briar Stewart shows us in New Westminster, there are efforts to reach out.
This is my apartment. There's all my knitting.
This is where 82-year-old Johanna Del Casino has been spending all of her days.
This is going into the garden, to looking into the garden.
Visitors can't come in and she can't be with her neighbors because the long-term care facility attached to her building has an outbreak of COVID-19.
You know, I have one friend, and he's 94 years old. Well, he doesn't want to come here now because of the COVID. He doesn't want to be in contact with me. So that is really difficult.
Even before the pandemic, research showed that as many as 50% of Canadians over 80 reported feeling lonely. But now the sense of isolation is heightened.
What we're hearing from seniors in the community at this time is that they almost feel forgotten, actually.
Suzanne Dupuis-Blanchard is working on a study surveying seniors who live on their own. She says while winter is normally a tough time, with rising case numbers and restrictions, this year will be particularly difficult.
So in this one we have eggs, we have pasta.
This food hamper program is one of the only things the Chilliwack Seniors Resource Society has running right now, as most of their classes and activities, which were just restarted, had to be canceled again.
A lot of our seniors are widowed, and a lot of our seniors live alone, so that's their only source of connection, doing a walking group, doing a reading group, you know, having an activity together. So they want to be doing things.
So now this organization, like others, is trying to pivot by putting more programming online. But they admit not all seniors are comfortable with technology, so they're also reaching out through phone calls. At the beginning of the pandemic, social service agencies put out a call for volunteers to help those who were stuck at home. The response was great, and so was the need.
In the first 6 months, we provided close to 400,000 services, which is double our annual amount in 6 months.
And that was just in BC. The United Way says the biggest demand was for groceries and meal delivery, as well as phone calls.
Yeah, we get into quite some conversations.
Del Casino gets one of those every morning and says it's the bright spot of her day.
Sure, it's nice to get a phone calls, but it's not the same. It's not the same as seeing them and walking with them and, you know. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that's in that situation.
Feeling lonely and knowing that most of the next few months will be spent in her apartment by herself. Briar Stewart, CBC News, New Westminster, BC.
Well, it was a pretty fun day, a fun Friday for some grade 3 and 4 students in Regina. Coming up, where they went without even leaving the schoolyard. And at 6:42, there's a live shot from high atop Grouse Mountain tonight, looking down at the sparkling lights in the city. Nice shot. And if you like today's weather on the South Coast, you're going to love tomorrow. The weekend is here. So is Johanna. Her forecast is coming next.
Can you describe where we are and what's going on here?
Well, we're in the middle of the Mississauga Food Bank main warehouse. This warehouse is like a distribution center, and from here it's distributed out to about 40 agencies around the city of Mississauga. That would be food banks, agencies, soup kitchens, all that sort of thing. But with COVID, what happened was we saw the need was so greatly increased that we opened a pantry. And so now we actually have distribution out of here to individuals who need food.
Now you also have it's a program called Food Bank to Home
Food Bank
here
to Home,
as
yes.
well. This part of your job is to make the phone calls to people who do need food. What are those conversations like?
For me, that would be the best part and also the hardest part of the role. The best part is, I say these are clients, but I feel I know these people. Very often I can recognize their voice when they call. Because you can see people who are having a really tough time, a really tough life, but it hasn't put them down.
The impact of this pandemic on the need, the increase from 42 households to almost 1,000 households, yeah. And that's just for the Food Bank to Home program. Can you keep up here?
Yeah, I think with that, it's always at the back of your mind that however much you do, there is always a need out there. And that's why we keep looking for more volunteers, we keep looking for more donations. There is always a need.
You're preparing and you're going to take food to Jerry.
Yes, I'll be packing today for Jerry, and then I'll do the delivery as well.
Now you two have been in contact for a while. 8 months?
It's about 8 months.
8 months now.
8 months,
but
yes.
you've never met face to face?
Never met him. Never met him.
What do you know about Jerry?
I don't know much about Jerry, actually. I just know he's a senior. I believe he lives alone. In my mind, I have a picture of these people.
Okay.
But I know it's probably nothing like what they'll turn out to be.
Yeah. Let's get to it. I guess we should meet Jerry.
Okay. So Jerry, I'm Jonathan. We've been speaking for months now, and finally I get to see you. Yeah. You look a lot younger than I thought you'd be. You know, when we speak to you I speak to you every other day. In my mind, I have this picture of who you are. But you're looking really good.
Well, thank you. The thing that impressed me with the food bank is they were very conscious of the situation, very helpful, were not putting me down like you're a beggar, or they were just so compassionate. It's a great feeling to feel someone is there to help. As I said, I've never asked for help in my life, but to realize that there is people out there and how compassionate and honest they are with me is it means so much.
The Market Report is brought to you by Fortis BC. We've got even bigger rebates. Whoa! On select high-efficiency equipment for business, but only for a limited time.
Johanna Wagstaffe back with the forecast now. It sure has been nice here on the south coast, but some unusual weather conditions in the north?
Yeah, big time. In fact, connected to this big ridge of high pressure we've been enjoying down here, it's been sending rain and warm temperatures up to the north. I want to show you first pictures out of the Northwest Territories where Tuktoyaktuk has been 20 to 25 degrees above seasonal. And you're looking at a video from a man in Tuktoyaktuk looking out at the rain and the melting snow. And he said he's never seen anything like this in the 30 years that he's lived there. And this has caused problems. Melting snow has led to flooding, and those very warm temperatures have made it hard for communities to get around who are used to the frozen ground right now. So yeah, incredibly warm temperatures going on a week. And back down in Haines, Alaska, bordering on northern BC, this has led to mudslides, washouts. You can see sinkholes opening up across parts of the community. Earlier this week, 6 people were missing because of a mudslide. Tonight, 2 people still missing in that community of about 2,500 people. So yeah, some wild weather across Alaska, Yukon, and into the NWT in Canada. Take a look at the setup. So our high pressure bringing us the blue skies. It's also been bringing some mid-teen temperatures to Alberta, but it's that jet stream that has pumped all the way up into the Northwest Territories that has brought that unusually record-breaking heat before diving back down across the east. So very unusual. And again, this high pressure system holding very strong for this time of the year. We will see things change as we head into the forecast for us. We've got a changing weather pattern for Monday, but everyone's sort of seen similar conditions for the next couple of days. You can see snowfall warning for Whitehorse, so getting some snow where it was rain, rainfall down through coastal sections. So Haines, Alaska, looking at another couple of days of steady rain. For us, we get the blue skies for one more day. taking you through Saturday tonight into Saturday morning. A slight chance of some high cloud to start, but generally it is going to be a blue sky day across Metro Vancouver. Watch as we get into Saturday night and Sunday morning. Slight chance of seeing some showers through Sunday. Some of the earlier models are bringing the showers in earlier than we thought on Sunday. The other ones are keeping those showers back to the end of Sunday, but we do get one good Saturday, that's for sure, before things change. Some mild temperatures up in the north, Fort Nelson at a 6. Cooler temperatures down across the south of Soyuz just at a 4. Let's take a look at that 5-day forecast. Again, the showers might end up moving in for Sunday. We'll see which model wins out, so enjoy that Saturday, just in case it's the rainy model. And rain returns on Monday. But Mike, speaking of the Arctic, it was a pretty fun Friday for some grade 3 and 4 students in Regina. They've been learning about the Arctic, and this morning they took a trip on an Arctic nature trail, but right in their own schoolyard.
Yeah, didn't have to go far. Our colleagues at CBC Saskatchewan caught up with a few participants to hear all about it.
The trail we have set up is it's kind of a mountain animal nature trail. The teachers in grade 3 and 4 have been teaching about Arctic animals. And so they contacted me to ask about what we could do outdoors to, sort of learn about those Arctic animals a little bit more. So I put together all of the sort of animals and antlers and hooves and things that fit with the Arctic animals that we have. And I've added in with it, I'm teaching them the words that the Inuit people would use for those animals, so they're learning that part. And we're also learning some of the activities and games that are related to the animals and how the animals are used by the people up there. They're very interested in the polar bear because that's the main thing they've been studying. So we have a station about polar bear. We're looking at the ptarmigan, the snowy owls, and finishing off with sort of the smaller mammals, the lemmings and the Arctic hares. We're also integrating some of the Inuit games and how their children learn from a very young age how to hunt and survive through games.
My favorite thing about learning outside is how I can get fresh air, and it's a lot easier to actually learn when you're actively out learning with your hands-on, doing hands-on learning. It's often a good trick to actually find 2 caribou antlers, then to bash them together and make noise, because then other caribou will think that there are 2 caribou fighting, and then they'll come out into the open to see it. The most exciting thing I've seen, I'm pretty sure it would have to be about the caribou again, and how the females actually have their antlers on for the entire winter, but the males keep their antlers on only until November when they shed them.
I like how you can do like hands-on things instead of just sitting and reading, because it's not really fun doing that, and you can actually see what it looks like.
Well, a string quartet in the Maritime took its classical version of Stan Rogers' Northwest Passage to new heights, almost literally. The result, a stunning combination of sight and sound. We'll see more of it next.
My name is Xavier Varnes. I was born in Hungary, in Europe, and I first came to Canada when I was 15. My family arrived to Toronto, and I became citizen sometimes in the 80s.
Xavier Varnes is one of the world's greats. We're in Brooklyn, not the one outside of New York, but the other one, beside Liverpool.
We are here in the most beautiful garden of Canada, in Nova Scotia, and I found this place, and I said, okay, this was my dream from my childhood, to have my own beautiful church with a beautiful organ.
Varnes was originally looking for a church to buy close to Toronto until he stumbled on the old First Baptist Church built back in 1847. He fell in love with it instantly, partly because of the ceiling.
I chose this because of the ceiling. The ceiling is the most unique thing. It's much more different than any other Protestant church here in Canada. The ceiling is like, I don't know, it's a very rare, very unique thing.
He has played the finest cathedrals around the world. His YouTube channel has millions of views. His plans for his Brooklyn church post-pandemic?
I want to create this church as the center of the organ world. My dream is something like that. I already invited many of the great organists of the world. So after COVID, all the actual great organists of the 21st century will come in here and play on this organ.
Now, it turns out the joy of owning your own church when you're an organist, it comes with perks.
Because usually when you're playing on the organ, that means that you have to go to some church. So before you go there, you have to take a shower, then after you have to dress yourself, you have to take your car, you have to go there, you have to talk to the priest, you have to get the key, and then after you can play the organ. Now this place is quite unique because on the morning when I just waking up, I came out from my bed, I'm making my coffee, and I'm still in pyjama. I am coming here and I'm playing the organ. So it's quite unique because I never had this combination in my life before, at organ, Bach, and pyjama.
After being vacant for a while, there's now new life and an old sound and an old soul echoing from these walls. Colleen Jones, CBC News, Brooklyn.
Well, every once in a while, a musical group hits on a piece that is so soaring and majestic, it demands an extraordinary performance.
Yes, the St. John String Quartet took its classical version of Stan Rogers' Northwest Passage to new heights. As you'll see, almost literally, the result is a stunning combination of sight and sound.
CBC's Harry Forrestal talked to the musicians about the piece and the performance.
I was going to be one of the ones that stand on the cliff, but I'm the baby of the group. I have a fear of heights, and I got within 20 feet of the edge and I said, sorry, no way.
It felt great. I thought, what a great, to feature that whole landscape. And, I tried to be as small as possible to not get in the way.
At one point, all four of you are standing on a rocky outcrop, and it came to my mind that had you taken a single step back, you likely would be a trio now rather than a quartet.
Yes, I remember that spot. It was really, really windy, and I remember clinging on to the rocks. I feel like I might have taken my shoes off. So with my toes, I was holding on, and I was really conscious to not let my bow fly off into the water. It was a little scary, but what came out of that shot was so cool. And actually, I had never been to that particular spot before. So it was cool to see all these different spots in New Brunswick.
The tide was coming in, and I had to keep getting up and moving down the beach a bit farther every time. My skirt was wet by the end of it. And of course the chair would sink into the sand as well. So it was a little disconcerting at some points. And then especially with the drone coming at me.
Now I do fly fishing, so I'm used to walking through rivers, so I was very comfortable with that. I don't know if it's too much information, but I had a pair of Crocs on and I just had a pair of black tennis shorts on, so I didn't ruin my tuxedo pants. But my fear was that I would fall and get totally soaked, but it didn't happen.
That is lovely. That part of New Brunswick is stunning.
Yeah, you know it well. It was beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful. And nobody was injured in the making of it.
Yeah.
Everybody survived.
There's still a quartet.
Nobody failed. Still a quartet.
Yeah.
We've got some numbers before we go to show you. Look at that.
Drum roll.
Yeah, there we
Wow.
go. 1.756 million. Food Bank Day, a great success. Thanks to everybody who's donated today. It's been absolutely
generous.
magic.
That is truly a record. Wow. Well done, everyone. Thank you.
That is all the time we have. Have a great weekend. Dan is here at 11, right after the National. Good night.
Good night.